The icy wind of late November whipped through the city streets, tugging at Alina's thin coat as if mocking its inability to shield her from the cold. She pulled it tighter around herself, though the fabric had long lost its warmth, and focused instead on the small, delicate hand gripping hers. Her daughter, Anya, popped over cracks in the pavement, her worn-out shoes slapping against the ground, holes covered hastily with tape. Alina's steps were heavy, her mind replaying the calculations she'd done that morning. The numbers didn't add up. They never did anymore. Rent was overdue. The electricity company had already issued a warning, and the landlady had given her one more week before threats turned into eviction. She had 3 coins left in her purse, barely enough for bread. Bread that would have to be their dinner, their breakfast, and if she was careful, tomorrow's lunch too. "Are we going to the bakery, Mama?" Anya's voice carried a spark of excitement. "Yes, sweetheart," Alina said softly, forcing a smile. "We'll get something warm." Anya giggled, swinging her arm with her mother's. She was only 6, too young to understand the weight pressing down on Alina's shoulders. To her, bread was bread, a game of pretending it was cake or a feast. To Alina, it was survival. They turned the corner, and the smell of freshly baked goods washed over them like a cruel wave. The little bakery, with its peeling red door and frosted windows, was a haven for passers-by. Inside, shelves gleamed with golden loaves, sugary pastries, and pies that sent warmth into the cold air. The moment they stepped in, Anya's eyes lit up, pressing herself against the glass display case. "Mama, look, they have croissants again. And those round ones with the sugar, remember? They're so pretty." Alina's heart squeezed. She remembered all too well the last time she'd bought her daughter a croissant had been almost a year ago, back when she still had a steady job, before everything unraveled. Now, those pastries were treasures she couldn't afford. "Not today, my love," she whispered, brushing her daughter's hair back gently. "We'll just get bread." The bakery was busy, customers chatting cheerfully as they ordered boxes of cakes and bags full of fresh rolls. Alina kept her head down, hoping no one would notice how she lingered near the cheapest section, choosing carefully, as though it mattered which bread was slightly larger. Her pride was fragile, and she hated how her hands trembled when she picked up the loaf. The cashier, a young woman with sharp eyeliner and disinterested eyes, barely glanced up. "That all?" she asked. Alina nodded, sliding her 3 coins onto the counter. They clinked softly, pitifully. The girl sighed, pushing the loaf toward her with a flick of her hand. Behind them, the door opened with a soft jangle, letting in a gust of cold air. Heavy footsteps followed, steady, confident, echoing against the tiled floor. Alina didn't turn around. She didn't want to draw attention to herself. Not now, not when shame burned at her cheeks for being the woman counting coins for bread. "Is that really all we can get?" Anya's small voice rose, curiosity and longing wrapped inside. "Mama, maybe we can just smell the sweet bread a little longer." The words pierced Alina's heart like knives. She squeezed her daughter's hand gently, trying to mask her sorrow with a smile. "Just for a moment, darling." The stranger who had just entered had stopped a few feet behind them, his eyes narrowing slightly as he overheard. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark wool coat that spoke of wealth and status. His polished shoes clicked softly against the floor as he moved closer. His sharp jawline and perfectly combed hair suggested someone who belonged to boardrooms, not bakeries. But what caught his attention most wasn't the bread up. It was the sight of the little girl pressing her nose against the glass, gazing at the croissants as if they were gold, and the mother standing behind her, her tired eyes betraying a quiet desperation she tried so hard to hide. The cashier, eager to move things along, cleared her throat. Next, Alina took the loaf carefully, holding it as if it were fragile treasure. "Thank you," she whispered, turning to leave quickly, hoping to slip away before anyone noticed her shame. But before she could step past the stranger, a deep voice stopped her in her tracks. "Get more." Alina froze. Slowly, she turned her head, her eyes meeting his for the first time. His gaze was steady, firm, yet not unkind. There was a weight to his words, a tone that carried authority, as though he wasn't merely suggesting but insisting. "Yeah, I'm sorry," she stammered, clutching the loaf closer to her chest. "Get more," he repeated, his voice calm yet commanding. "Whatever you need, I'll pay for everything." The bakery seemed to fall into silence. A couple at a nearby table turned their heads. Even the cashier paused, her brows lifting in surprise. Alina's breath caught in her throat. Was this some kind of cruel joke? Her cheeks burned hotter. She shook her head quickly, words tumbling out in panic. "No, sir. Yeah, broken bar, I can't accept that. Please, we'll be fine." But the man's expression didn't change. If anything, his eyes softened, though his tone remained firm. "You can, and you will. No mother should have to count coins for bread." Her lips trembled. She wanted to protest, to cling to her pride, but her daughter's wide, hopeful eyes betrayed her. Anya looked up at the stranger as though he were a magician, a miracle sent into their bleak reality. "Mommy, a broken bar, did you hear him?" Anya whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. "He said we can get more." Alina's heart waged war against itself. Pride screamed at her not to accept charity, not in front of strangers, not like this. But the mother inside here, the one who had gone hungry so her child could eat, the one who had silently cried in the dark after skipping meals, knew this might be the first true kindness they had been offered in months. She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you, a broken bar, do this?" The man gave a faint smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Because sometimes," he said quietly, "the world is crueler than it should be. And sometimes as a broken bar people need someone to remind them it doesn't always have to be." Alina blinked, tears burning behind her eyes. She turned her face slightly, ashamed of showing weakness, but her grip on the bread softened. She had no way of knowing it yet, but this moment, this stranger's sudden kindness, it was about to change everything. Because the man standing before her was not just another customer with spare money to spend. He was Mark Volkov, the CEO of one of the largest corporations in the city, a man whose world revolved around power, profit, and control. Yet here he was, in the small corner bakery, moved not by business, but by a mother and her child. And fate, cruel and unpredictable as it often was, had just intertwined their lives in the most unexpected way. For a long moment, Alina stood frozen, her daughter's hand gripping hers as though she were the anchor in a storm. The stranger, this tall, impeccably dressed man, looked at her with a quiet firmness, his words hanging in the air like a command disguised as kindness. "Get what you need," he repeated softly, his voice deep and steady. "Don't hold back. I'll take care of it." Alina's throat tightened. She wanted to protest again, but Tanya tugged at her coat, eyes shimmering with excitement. "Mama, can we really?" the child whispered. "Just one croissant, a broken bar, please." Her defenses wavered. Slowly, as though moving in a dream, Alina turned back to the shelves. At first, she reached only for the croissant, telling herself it was enough. But then her eyes caught the small bag of soft rolls, perfect for Anya's school lunch, and her fingers lingered. She picked them up, her hand trembling. Next came a carton of milk, a small pack of cheese, even butter. Each item felt heavier than its weight, as if every choice was a silent battle between pride and desperation. The man watched quietly, saying nothing, but his gaze never left her. He saw the hesitation in her movements, the way she second-guessed every reach, as though afraid someone would accuse her of taking too much. When she finally placed the basket on the counter, the cashier raised her brows, surprised at the sudden change. Before Alina could stammer an explanation, the stranger stepped forward, handing over a sleek black card. "Add 2 cakes as well," he told the cashier in a tone that brokered no refusal. "Children deserve sweets." Anya gasped softly, her little hands clapping in delight. "Mama, did you hear? Cakes." Alina's eyes blurred with tears. She turned away quickly, hiding her face, ashamed of her weakness. But her heart swelled with gratitude that she couldn't put into words. The cashier bagged everything quickly, glancing between them curiously, but the man's presence silenced any questions. With a swift motion, he collected the receipt and stepped aside, waiting as though this moment belonged entirely to Alina and her daughter. When they stepped outside, the cold air bit at Alina's cheeks. She held the bags tightly, feeling their warmth through the paper. For the first time in months, she carried more than survival, she carried abundance. She turned to the man, her breath visible in the frosty air. "I don't know how to thank you, sir," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "We're strangers." "A broken bar. You didn't have to do this." The man studied her carefully, his sharp features softened by something unspoken. "My name is Mark," he said at last, "and I believe sometimes strangers are the ones meant to change our lives." His words lingered in the air, heavy with a weight Alina couldn't understand. She looked down, struggling to hold on to her composure. "Still a broken bar. What you've done, Tothea, it means more than I can say." Mark tilted his head, observing the quiet dignity in her. She wasn't a woman used to asking for help. If anything, she seemed almost resentful of her own need. That strength caught his attention more than anything. "Do you work?" he asked gently, though his voice carried the curiosity of someone used to answers. Alina hesitated, shame flooding her cheeks. "Yeah, broken bar. Lost my job months ago. I've been searching, but with a child a broken bar it's difficult. No one wants to wait for a mother who might have to leave suddenly for her daughter." She exhaled shakily, gripping the bag tighter. "I take what small tasks I can. Cleaning, sewing, but a broken bar, it's not enough." Mark nodded slowly, his mind already turning. In his world, people boasted of achievements, of profits and power. But this woman, tired, worn, yet still standing, spoke of survival. He saw in her something rare, resilience that no the copyright copyright could capture. "I might have an opportunity," he said finally, his tone casual but his gaze unwavering. "My company is always in need of people who are determined, responsible, and willing to learn. Would you be interested?" Alina blinked, her heart stumbling over itself. For a moment, she thought she misheard him. "You a broken bar. You'd hire me?" Mark's lips curved slightly, though his eyes remained serious. "I don't give charity," he said firmly. "I give chances, and I think you deserve one." Her breath caught in her throat. All the weight she had carried for months seemed to lift, if only slightly. She thought of nights spent sewing until her eyes ached, of eating less so her daughter could have more, of the silent tears shed when no one was watching. And now, here was this mana, a stranger, offering her not just bread, but a doorway to dignity. Tears spilled freely now, and Alina no longer cared to hide them. She crouched down, hugging Anya tightly. The little girl's voice was soft but full of wonder. "Mommy, a broken bar. Maybe God sent him." Alina's chest ached as she pressed her cheek against her daughter's hair. Maybe he had. Maybe this was the answer to the countless prayers she had whispered at night, when she thought no one listened. When she stood again, her eyes met Mark's. Her voice shook, but her smile small, trembling. Yet Bella emerged. "Thank you for the bread, a broken bar, and for believing in me." Mark returned the smile, faint but sincere. And for a brief moment, the cold street seemed warmer, the noise of the city fading into the background. Something unspoken passed between them, something neither could explain. To Alina, it felt like hope, something she had nearly forgotten. To Mark, it felt like a reminder of humanity, of compassion, of a life outside the walls of his empire. What had started as a desperate purchase of bread had transformed into something much greater. It was more than a simple act of kindness. It was the beginning of a story neither of them had expected. As they parted ways, Alina carried her bags not just with the weight of food, but with the lightness of possibility. And Mark, returning to his sleek black car, glanced back once at the fragile figure of the mother and child. His world was one of contracts and power, yet in that bakery, he had seen something more valuable than any deal of courage, love, and a strength that could not be bought. Fate had a strange way of weaving lives together. Alina had walked into that bakery ready to spend her last coins on bread, believing survival was all that was left for her. Instead, she walked out with more than food, as she walked out with a chance at a future she had long stopped dreaming of. And though neither of them knew it yet, this encounter was only the first chapter in a story that would change both of their lives forever.